Jake Harrison stood by the big window of his spaceship. He watched the huge space station grow bigger as they got closer. The station looked like a giant metal flower floating in the dark of space. Its long arms reached out in all directions. Ships from many different planets were docked at those arms. This was going to be very important for Earth. It was the first time humans would meet with the big group that ruled most of the galaxy. They called themselves the Galactic Council. Jake hoped everything would go well. He wanted to show that humans belonged among the stars with all the other smart races. Captain Lisa Brooks stood next to him. She kept fixing her uniform. She looked nervous. Jake could tell she was worried about something. "We will be there in 10 minutes, Commander," she said. "Everyone is ready for the meeting." She stopped talking and looked at the small boy sitting in the corner. "Are you sure we should bring Danny? This is not a normal trip for kids." Danny Martinez was 8 years old. He had dark hair and big, curious eyes. The boy was looking at his tablet computer, but he was listening to the adults talk. 6 months ago, something bad had happened on Mars where Danny lived. His parents had died in an accident. Jake had decided to take care of the boy since then. Danny was supposed to stay on Earth while Jake went on this trip, but the person who was going to watch Danny got sick at the last minute. Jake had no choice but to bring him along. "He will be okay," Jake said, but he did not sound sure. The space station has safe areas for all kinds of people and aliens. Nothing bad should happen. Just as Jake said those words, the communication system made a loud crackling noise. A scared voice came through the speakers. It was one of the aliens who worked on the station. The alien sounded very frightened. "All ships stay away. Big emergency. Code Black, the Korthak Warbeast has broken free. Say again, Grimjaw the Destroyer is loose on level 7 of the station." Jake felt his blood turn cold. Every human in the galaxy knew about Grimjaw. It was the most dangerous creature anyone had ever seen. The beast was 12 feet tall and covered in armor-like skin. Its claws could cut through steel like paper. During the big war years ago, this one creature had destroyed 3 whole planets by itself. Millions of people had died because of it. ES military had finally caught Grimjaw, but it took thousands of soldiers and many big ships. Many people died in that battle too. After they caught it, the Galactic Council kept the creature frozen in a special prison. They said it was too dangerous to be awake. Now somehow it had escaped. "How did it get out?" Lisa asked into the radio. "We do not know. The prison just stopped working. 17 security teams are already dead. The creature is moving through areas where normal people live. We are trying to get everyone off the station, but..." The voice disappeared into static noise. Then it came back. "Oh no, it just broke through a blast door like it was made of paper." Through the window, Jake could see ships flying away from the station as fast as they could. Red emergency lights were flashing all over the station's metal surface. Small escape pods were shooting out into space like tiny rockets. "We need to turn around and leave," Lisa said firmly. "This is too dangerous, especially with Danny here." But Jake was already moving toward the ship's controls. "No. There are thousands of people on that station. If Grimjaw gets to the areas where families live..." He turned on the ship's intercom system. "Everyone get ready for emergency landing. We are going to help." Danny looked up from his tablet. His young face was serious but not scared. "Uncle Jake, are we going to help the people?" Jake knelt down next to the boy. His voice was gentle but worried. "We are going to try, buddy, but I need you to promise me something very important. You have to stay with Captain Brooks no matter what happens. Can you promise me that?" The boy nodded his head up and down. "I promise." Jake stood up and looked out the window again. The space station was getting bigger and bigger. He could see the damage on its surface now. Some parts were dark where the power had gone out. Other parts had holes blown in them. This was going to be very dangerous. Lisa was checking her weapon and looking at the readings on her computer. "Jake, the reports are getting worse. This thing has killed over 50 security guards already. Their best weapons cannot even scratch it. What makes you think we can do anything?" "Because we have to try," Jake said. "Those are innocent people in there, families with children. If we can save even a few lives, it will be worth it. Danny was listening to everything the adult said. He was a smart boy and understood that something very bad was happening, but he was not as scared as he should have been. Maybe it was because he was too young to really understand how dangerous Grimjaw was, or maybe it was because he trusted Uncle Jake to keep him safe. The ship shook as they got closer to the station. Jake could see the docking bay they were aiming for. It looked like a war had happened there. Pieces of metal were floating in space around the entrance. Some of them were still glowing red-hot from explosions. "Docking in 30 seconds, Lisa announced. She was trying to sound calm, but her voice was shaking a little. "Jake, I have to ask you one more time. Are you sure about this? We could call for help instead. Let the big military ships handle it." Jake shook his head. "Help will take hours to get here. By then everyone on that station could be dead." He checked his own weapon and put on his protective vest. Besides, sometimes the right thing to do is also the dangerous thing to do. The ship bumped gently as it connected to the space station. Through the walls they could hear sirens wailing and people shouting. Somewhere in the distance a terrible roar echoed through the metal halls. It was a sound that made everyone's skin crawl. It was the sound of something that enjoyed hunting and killing. Danny closed his tablet and stood up. He was still not showing fear, just curiosity about what was happening. "Uncle Jake, what does a warbeast look like?" "Like nothing you have ever seen, buddy," Jake said, "and hopefully you never will." But as Jake said those words, he had no idea how wrong he was. In just a few hours, this 8-year-old boy would come face to face with the most feared creature in the galaxy, and when that happened, everything everyone thought they knew about monsters and friendship would change forever. The docking door opened with a hiss of air. Emergency lights flashed red and white in the corridor beyond. Jake stepped forward first, his weapon ready. Lisa followed with Danny close beside her. They were about to enter a nightmare. But sometimes, in the middle of the worst nightmares, the most amazing and impossible things can happen. Sometimes a small act of kindness can change everything, and sometimes the scariest monsters are just looking for someone to understand them. The hunt was about to begin, but nobody knew yet who would be the hunter and who would be the hunted. The docking bay looked like a bomb had gone off inside it. Sparks fell from broken wires in the ceiling. The air smelled like burned metal and smoke. Emergency sirens were making loud noises that hurt their ears. Jake Harrison walked carefully. Through the mess on the floor, his gun was ready to shoot. Behind him, Captain Brooks kept one hand on Danny's shoulder. Her other hand held her weapon. The boy carried a small emergency beacon that would help people find him if he got lost. A tall blue alien came running toward them. His name was Veltar, and he worked as the boss of this part of the space station. He was usually very calm and in control, but now he looked scared and upset. His blue skin was much paler than normal. "Commander Harrison, you should not have come here. The beast is too dangerous. Nothing can stop it. Our best fighters and our strongest weapons have done nothing to it," Veltar said. His voice was shaking. "Where is it now?" Jake asked. "Level 7, Section C," Veltar answered. "It killed General Chromax. Chromax was the strongest warrior in the Thrakari army. He had won battles on dozens of planets. The creature turned him into dust in just a few seconds. This thing does not just kill people. It seems to enjoy hunting them." As if the creature heard them talking about it, a terrible roar came through the walls of the station. The sound was like nothing Danny had ever heard before. It was angry and scary and completely alien. The lights on the ceiling flickered. Somewhere, far away, people were screaming. "How many people are still on the station?" Lisa asked. "We have gotten 60% of them off safely," Veltar said. "But the beast is moving toward the family living areas. There are children there, Commander, hundreds of them from many different planets." His hands were shaking. "We cannot talk to the security teams in that area anymore. I think they are all dead." Jake's face became hard and angry. He thought about all the children in danger. Then, he looked at Danny. The boy was listening to everything very carefully. His small face was serious. "I'm going to find it and stop it," Jake said. "That is suicide," Veltar said loudly. Do you not understand? This creature has scared the whole galaxy for hundreds of years. It was only caught by luck and by using thousands of soldiers. No single person can fight Grimjaw and live. Then I will have to make my own luck, Jake said. He turned to Lisa. Take Danny to the command center. Help coordinate getting people off the station from there. But as they started walking deeper into the station, something bad happened. An explosion shook the hallway in front of them. Everyone fell down from the force of it. When the smoke cleared, they saw that their path was blocked. Twisted pieces of metal and sparking electrical cables made it impossible to get through. We have to go through Section B to get around this, Veltar said quickly. But that is the same direction where the beast is. It is the only way to get to the command center. They had no choice. They had to follow the damaged hallways deeper into the station. As they walked, they could see more and more signs of what Grimjaw had done. There were deep scratch marks in the metal walls where its claws had dug in. Blast doors that were supposed to be impossible to break were torn apart like paper. Security equipment was scattered everywhere in small pieces. Danny walked quietly next to the adults. His young mind was trying to understand everything he saw. Unlike the adults, he was not afraid. He was just curious. When they passed a place where the creature's huge claws had left grooves in the floor, he stopped to look at them more carefully. Uncle Jake, he said softly, the scratches look angry. What do you mean, buddy? Like when my dog Rex used to scratch at the door when he was upset. He just wanted someone to pay attention to him. Jake looked at Lisa with surprise. Children sometimes saw things differently than adults did, but this seemed like a strange thing to say about a killing machine. They kept walking through more and more damaged parts of the station. Veltar led them through maintenance tunnels and service corridors. He was trying very hard to avoid the creature while still getting them to the evacuation areas. But Grimjaw was hunting too, and now its prey had entered its territory. The hallway in front of them suddenly became very quiet. There were no more distant roars or screams, just a scary silence that made everyone feel cold inside. Veltar stopped walking. His blue skin became even paler. It is close, he whispered. I can feel that it is near. We should turn around and go back. The wall next to them exploded inward with tremendous force. Pieces of metal and debris flew everywhere. Through all the dust and smoke, a huge dark shape appeared. Grimjaw, the destroyer, stood in front of them. In all its terrifying glory, the creature was 12 feet tall. Its body was covered in thick armor-like skin that looked like it could stop bullets. Its arms ended in claws as long as kitchen knives. Its reptile-like eyes glowed with a scary intelligence. Scars from many battles marked its dark hide. Its mouth was full of teeth the size of daggers. The creature looked at the small group of humans and let out a roar that shook the entire space station. This was the beast that had eaten whole armies. This was the monster that had turned planets into graveyards. And now it had found new prey to hunt. Jake raised his weapon, but he knew it would not help. The gun was too small to hurt something like this. Lisa pushed Danny behind her. Her own gun was shaking in her hands. Veltar fell to his knees because he was so scared. Everyone expected the creature to attack immediately. Everyone expected to die in the next few seconds, but something impossible happened instead. Danny Martinez stepped forward instead of backward. His small hand reached out toward the most feared predator in the galaxy. Easy there, big guy, he said in the same gentle voice he had once used with his pet dog. You are scared, are not you? The massive creature stopped moving. Its glowing eyes focused on the small human child who was not running away. For the first time in its life, Grimjaw was looking at something that was not afraid of it. Jake wanted to grab Danny and pull him back to safety, but something told him not to move. Something told him that any sudden movement might break whatever was happening. Lisa could not believe what she was seeing. The most dangerous creature in the known universe was just standing there looking at a little boy. It had not attacked. It had not roared again. It was just watching Danny with what almost looked like curiosity. Danny took another small step forward. He was now close enough that the creature could kill him with one swipe of its claws. But the boy showed no fear at all. You are not really mean, are you? Danny said softly. You are just lonely and scared. Just like Rex was when there were thunderstorms. The creature's head tilted to one side like it was trying to understand what the boy was saying. Its eyes were still glowing, but somehow they seemed less angry now, more confused than dangerous. "I know you do not understand my words," Danny continued, "but maybe you can understand this." He sat down on the floor right in front of the massive predator. He looked up at the towering creature without any fear in his eyes. Sometimes when you are scared, it helps to have someone just sit with you. What happened next would change everything anyone thought they knew about monsters, friendship, and the power of simple kindness. Time seemed to stop in the broken hallway of the space station. Grimjaw the Destroyer stood perfectly still. The legendary Warbeast that had brought whole civilizations to their knees was staring at 8-year-old Danny Martinez. The boy sat on the floor in front of the creature and showed no fear at all. "Danny, no!" Jake shouted. But his voice sounded far away and muffled. What was happening seemed impossible. Captain Brooks tried to grab the boy, but Danny was already too far away from her reach. Administrator Veltar was still on his knees. His blue skin was now completely white with terror. Every part of their brains told them they were watching the last moments of the child's life. But Grimjaw did not attack. Instead, the massive creature lowered its head a little bit. It was studying Danny with what looked almost like curiosity. Its nose moved as it smelled the boy's scent. A low rumbling sound came from its throat. But this was not the bone-chilling roar they had heard before. This sound was different. It sounded almost like a question. Danny kept moving forward slowly. His small hand was still reaching out toward the creature. "You are not really angry, are you?" he said softly. "You are just lonely and scared, like Rex was when the thunder came." The Warbeast's eyes became narrow, but not with anger. There was intelligence in those eyes that none of the adults had expected. There was a mind in there that seemed to be thinking about what the child was saying and doing. "I know you do not understand what I am saying," Danny continued. He was now only a few feet away from the creature's massive claws. "But maybe you can understand this." He sat down with his legs crossed on the debris-covered floor. He looked up at the towering predator without blinking. "Sometimes when you are scared, it helps to have someone just sit with you." Grimjaw's head tilted even more. The low rumbling sound in its throat changed to a different pitch. To the amazement of everyone watching, the creature's fighting posture began to relax a little bit. Its claws, which had been out and ready to kill, slowly went back into its fingers. Jake kept his weapon pointed at the beast, but his hands were shaking. In all his years as a soldier, he had never seen anything like this. The creature that had destroyed entire space fleets by itself was having what looked like a conversation with a human child. "How is this possible?" Veltar whispered. His voice was so quiet they could barely hear it. Lisa shook her head in disbelief. "I do not know, but do not move. Do not do anything that might break whatever magic Danny is making." The boy looked up at Grimjaw with the same patient look he had worn when trying to comfort scared animals back on Mars Colony. "You have been locked up for a long time, have not you? That must have been really scary. Nobody likes being trapped in the dark." The Warbeast's breathing had become slower. Its glowing eyes seemed less fierce now. They looked more sad than angry. It was hard to read emotions in such an alien face, but something had definitely changed in the creature's behavior. Danny slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out a small protein bar. It was his emergency snack that Captain Brooks had made. "Him carry." He unwrapped it carefully, broke off a small piece, and held it out toward the massive predator. "Are you hungry?" "I know it is not much, but it is all I have." For a moment, nobody breathed. The gesture was so innocent and so purely human that it seemed to go beyond every barrier of species and evolution. Here was a child offering food to a monster. He was not doing it because he was scared or desperate. He was doing it because he was being kind. Grimjaw's massive head lowered until its nose was just inches away from Danny's hand. The creature sniffed the food he was offering. Then, incredibly, it gently took the food with just the tip of its tongue. It was very careful not to hurt the small human. The protein bar disappeared into the Warbeast's mouth. Another rumbling, Sound came from its throat. This one was definitely different. It was warmer, almost like the purring sound a cat makes. "There you go," Danny said with a smile. "See? You are not so scary when you are not afraid." He looked directly into the creature's eyes. He was close enough to count its teeth, but he showed no fear. "I bet nobody ever just sat with you before, did they? Nobody ever tried to be your friend?" What happened next was immediate and shocking. Grimjaw the Destroyer, the terror of the galaxy, slowly lowered itself to the floor. Its massive body settled into a resting position. This brought its head down to the same level as the small boy. The creature's eyes, which had glowed with predatory fire just minutes before, now seemed almost gentle. Danny reached out, and to everyone's amazement, gently touched the side of the creature's nose. The armored skin was warm under his small hand. Grimjaw's eyes actually closed when the boy touched it. "You are not a monster," Danny whispered. "You are just lonely." In that moment, something fundamental changed in the universe. A human child and the galaxy's most feared predator were sharing a connection that went beyond every rule of nature and warfare. The impossible had become real. 3,000 years of assumptions about violence, power, and understanding were quietly rewritten by the simple compassion of an 8-year-old boy. Jake slowly lowered his weapon. His mind was struggling to process what he was seeing. Captain Brooks stared in stunned silence. Administrator Veltar's skin had begun to change, through colors that had no names in any language, but Danny Martinez just sat there on the floor of a damaged space station. He was gently stroking the nose of the most dangerous creature in known space. And suddenly everything in the galaxy seemed different. The creature made more soft sounds. They were not random noises. There seemed to be patterns in them, like they meant something specific. Danny listened carefully to the sounds. His young mind was not limited by scientific doubt like the adults' minds were. "It sounds like you are trying to tell me your name," Danny said. "It sounds like Corvash? Is that what you are called? Corvash?" The Warbeast's reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Its eyes became brighter, and it made that musical sound again, but stronger this time. Then, incredibly, it lowered its massive head until its nose was touching Danny's chest. It was not being aggressive, it was being gentle, almost like it was giving the boy a hug. "By the void," Veltar breathed. "The child is actually talking with it." "Not it," Danny corrected firmly. "His name is Corvash, and he is not an it, any more than I am." The boy looked around at all the adults with the kind of moral certainty that only children have. "How would you feel if everyone called you it and locked you in a dark box for years and years?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. Jake found himself looking at Grimjaw with new eyes. Instead of seeing a monstrous predator, he began to notice the intelligence in the creature's gaze. He saw the careful way it moved to avoid, accidentally hurting the small human beside it. He saw the almost desperate gentleness with which it responded to Danny's touch. Other people started arriving. Scientists and military officers came to see what was happening. They had heard reports that seemed impossible to believe. When they saw the scene for themselves, they were struck speechless. Dr. Elena Vasquez was the chief scientist who studied alien life forms on the station. She arrived with a team of researchers and instruments. She approached very carefully, afraid to disturb whatever delicate balance had been achieved. "Commander Harrison," she called softly, "we are reading brain activity from the creature that we have never seen before. Its mind patterns have completely changed from the aggressive state we recorded during its attack." Jake nodded without taking his eyes off Danny and Corvash. The boy was now leaning against the creature's massive arm. He seemed more relaxed than any of the adults in the hallway. The Warbeast's breathing had become deep and steady. Its eyes were half closed in what could only be described as happiness. "How long has it been since anyone tried to understand instead of control?" Danny asked. He was not speaking to anyone in particular. He was just thinking out loud the way children do. Dr. Vasquez looked at her computer tablet. She was reading. Through decades of research, the Korthak species was classified as completely hostile after the Rim Wars. Every interaction since then has been through prison or combat. We have never tried peaceful contact. Maybe that was the problem, Danny said simply. He looked up at Korvash's massive head. You were just defending yourself, were not you, when those big ships came to your planet with all their weapons? The creature's response was a low, almost musical sound that none of them had heard before. Dr. Vasquez's instruments showed activity in the parts of Korvash's brain that dealt with memory and emotions. In this moment, in a damaged hallway on a space station, everything anyone thought they knew about monsters and friendship was being rewritten by a child and a creature who had found each other across the vast darkness of space. News about what happened in the hallway spread through Zephyr Station like wildfire. The impossible scene was being broadcast on emergency channels. Evacuation teams, security officers, and station workers who could not believe their eyes were watching it happen. Grimjaw the Destroyer, the creature that had needed whole space fleets to capture, was lying peacefully on the floor. A human child sat beside it like they were old friends. More people kept arriving to see for themselves. Scientists came with their instruments and computers. Military officers came with their weapons ready, but they did not know what to do. Station administrators came to try to figure out what this meant for everyone's safety. Dr. Elena Vasquez was recording everything with her equipment. She was more excited than she had ever been in her life as a scientist. Commander Harrison, she said quietly, not wanting to disturb Danny and Korvash. We are reading brain activity from the creature that we have never seen before. Its mind is working in ways that are completely different from when it was angry and attacking. Jake nodded, but kept watching Danny and Korvash. The boy was now leaning against the creature's huge arm like it was a comfortable chair. He looked more relaxed than any of the adults standing around them. The Warbeast was breathing slowly and deeply. Its eyes were half closed like it was feeling peaceful and happy. How long has it been since anyone tried to understand instead of trying to control? Danny asked. He was not talking to anyone specific. He was just thinking out loud the way kids do sometimes. Dr. Vasquez looked at her tablet computer. She was reading through many years of research files. The Korthak species was marked as completely hostile after the big wars. Every time we have dealt with them since then, it has been through prison or fighting. We have never tried to make peaceful contact. Maybe that was the problem, Danny said simply. He looked up at Korvash's massive head. You were just protecting yourself, were not you? When those big ships came to your home planet with all their weapons and soldiers, the creature made a response that was a low, almost musical sound. None of them had heard Korvash make this sound before. Dr. Vasquez's computer showed activity in the parts of Korvash's brain that dealt with memories and feelings. This is remarkable, she whispered to the other scientists. It is like the creature is actually trying to talk to us. We have recorded 17 different sounds in the past 10 minutes. That is much more complex talking than anything we have in our files about hostile encounters. Administrator Veltar had recovered enough to come closer, though he still kept a safe distance. His blue skin was slowly returning to its normal color. In all the histories of the Galactic Council, there is no record of a Korthak responding to peaceful approaches. They were always described as mindless killing machines. History is written by the winners, Captain Brooks said quietly. Maybe we never gave them a chance to be anything else. Danny turned to look at all the adults standing around them. His 8-year-old way of seeing things cut right through years of military thinking and scientific theory. You all keep calling him it and the creature. But he has a name, does not he? Grimjaw is not really a scary name. It is just what he is called. He turned back to the Warbeast and spoke directly to it. Is that your real name? Or is that just what the mean people called you? Korvash's response was immediate, and like nothing they had ever heard before. The creature lifted its massive head and made a series of sounds. They were deep, echoing tones that seemed to carry real meaning. Dr. Vasquez's equipment recorded the sounds while she quickly compared them to language databases in her computer. These are not random noises, she announced with growing excitement. There is structure here, patterns that suggest actual language. If I'm reading this correctly, the creature is trying to tell us something specific. Danny listened carefully, to the sounds. His young mind was not limited by scientific doubt the way the adults' minds were. It sounds like... Corvash? Is that your name? Corvash? The Warbeast's reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Its eyes became brighter and it made that musical sound again, but much stronger this time. Then, incredibly, it lowered its massive head until its nose was touching Danny's chest. It was not being aggressive at all. It was being gentle, almost, like it was giving the boy a hug. By the void, Veltar said quietly. The child is actually communicating with it, not it, Danny said firmly. His name is Corvash, and he is not an it any more than I am. The boy looked around at all the adults with the kind of moral certainty that only children have. How would you feel if everyone called you it, and locked you in a dark box for years and years? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Jake found himself looking at Grimjaw with completely new eyes. Instead of seeing a monster, he began to notice the intelligence in the creature's gaze. He saw the careful way it moved so it would not accidentally hurt the small human beside it. He saw the almost desperate gentleness with which it responded to Danny's touch. Dr. Vasquez was recording everything. Her excitement was barely contained. We need to document all of this. If we can establish real communication with a Korthak, it could change our understanding of alien life completely. The implications for peaceful first contact with new species alone could be revolutionary. Are you going to lock him up again? Danny interrupted. His voice was suddenly sharp and protective. After he has been good and gentle and tried to talk to you? The question made everyone go silent. Corvash seemed to understand the boy's tone, even if he did not understand the words. The creature's posture changed slightly. It became more alert, more guarded. The brief peace that had settled over the hallway began to feel fragile and breakable. Jake knelt down beside Danny. His voice was gentle but serious. That is not up to us, buddy. There are rules and laws. People are scared because of what happened before. But that was before anyone tried to be nice to him, Danny protested. Rex used to bite people too when he was scared. But once we showed him he was safe, he became the sweetest dog ever. Corvash watched the conversation between the humans with obvious intelligence. When Danny mentioned being nice, the creature made that musical sound again. Its massive head turned toward Jake with what looked like hopeful attention. More and more people were arriving in the hallway. Word had spread throughout the entire station about what was happening. Aliens from dozens of different species came to see the impossible sight. Some of them were the same species that Corvash's people had fought in the old wars. When they saw the creature sitting peacefully with a human child, their faces showed amazement and confusion. A group of Thrakari warriors arrived. These were the same type of soldiers whose general had been killed by Corvash earlier. They came with their weapons ready, expecting to see a battle. Instead, they found a scene of peace that none of them could understand. How is this possible? One of the Thrakari asked. This creature killed our greatest general. It has destroyed planets, and now it sits like a tame pet with a small human. Danny heard the alien's words and turned to look at the group of warriors. He is not a pet, the boy said firmly. He is a person, just like you are. He was just scared and angry because nobody was nice to him. The Thrakari warriors looked at each other in confusion. Everything they had been taught about the Korthak species was being challenged by what they were seeing. Dr. Vasquez approached the group of new arrivals. We are witnessing the most significant breakthrough in xenobiology in recorded history, she explained. This creature, Corvash, has demonstrated capacity for communication, emotional connection, and peaceful behavior that contradicts everything we thought we knew about his species. But even as the scientists got excited about their discovery, Danny was thinking about something else entirely. He was thinking about fairness and friendship and what it meant to be kind to someone who had never experienced kindness before. Uncle Jake, he said quietly, if we can be friends with Corvash, maybe we can be friends with his family too. Maybe all the fighting was just a big misunderstanding. The boy's words hit everyone like a thunderbolt. If communication was possible, with one Korthak, what did that mean for the rest of the species? What did it mean for all the assumptions they had made about alien races in general? The moment of truth was approaching. Soon, the leaders of the Galactic Council would have to make a decision about Corvash's fate. But they would also have to decide something much bigger. They would have to decide whether the galaxy was ready to try understanding instead of fighting, friendship instead of fear. And in the center of it all sat a human child and a creature that had once been called a monster, proving that sometimes the most important discoveries happen when you simply choose to be kind. Within hours, the emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was called. Representatives from dozens of different species gathered in Zephyr Station's main meeting chamber. The debate started immediately, and it was fierce. On one side were those who demanded that Grimjaw be put back into frozen sleep or destroyed completely. On the other side was a growing group that argued Danny Martinez's breakthrough was the most important advancement in understanding alien life in galactic history. Jake Harrison stood before the assembly with Danny at his side. Behind them, Corvash rested peacefully. The massive creature had refused to leave the boy's side. When people tried to separate them, Corvash had made distress sounds that worried everyone involved. "Honorable delegates," Jake began. His voice carried the weight of both military authority and personal conviction. "What we witnessed today challenges everything we thought we knew about the Korthak species. This being Corvash has shown he can communicate, form emotional connections, and behave gently in ways that contradict decades of hostile classification." General Thax of the Rigelian Defense Force stepped forward. His hard shell body clicked with agitation. "One incident does not erase centuries of violence. This creature destroyed 3 colonies and killed thousands of our people. You ask us to forget this because a human child petted it?" Danny looked up at the intimidating alien. "General, without fear, did anyone ever try to talk to his people before the fighting started? Did anyone try to be friends first?" The chamber fell completely silent. It was such a simple question from such a simple child, but it struck at the heart of how galactic civilization approached unknown species. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward with her findings. "Our analysis of Corvash's sound suggests a complex language structure," she reported. "More importantly, our review of historical records shows that first, contact with the Korthak species was started by mining ships entering their territory without permission. The attacks we called unprovoked may have been defensive responses to what they saw as invasion." Ambassador Zelthara of the Andorian Republic raised her crystal hand. "Even if this is true, how do we know this creature can be trusted? How do we know it will not go back to violent behavior?" Danny stepped forward. His small hand found Corvash's massive claw. The creature immediately lowered its head to the boy's level and made the soft musical sound they had learned meant happiness. "Because nobody ever gave him a chance to be good," Danny said with the absolute certainty of childhood. "Everyone just decided he was bad because he was different and scary looking, but he is not scary when you are nice to him. He is just lonely." Corvash seemed to sense the emotional weight of the moment. The massive creature moved with careful deliberation, approaching the assembly with slow, non-threatening movements. When it reached the center of the chamber, it did something unprecedented in galactic history. It sat down. The simple act resonated through the chamber like a thunderclap. Here was the most feared predator in known space, voluntarily placing itself in a vulnerable position before its former enemies. It was responding to the gentle request of a human child. "Sit," Danny said again, and Corvash immediately settled into a resting position. Its massive head was lowered respectfully toward the assembled delegates. The gesture was unmistakable across every species present. It was submission, but more than that, it was trust. Captain Brooks spoke into the stunned silence. "Members of, the Council, we stand at a crossroads. We can choose fear and continue the cycle of violence that has defined our relationship with the Korthak species. Or we can choose the path that an 8-year-old human boy has shown us. The path of understanding, compassion, and genuine communication." Administrator Veltar, his scales now showing colors of hope rather than fear, added his voice. "In my 50 years of service to this station, I have never witnessed anything like what occurred today. If we return this being to captivity after what we have learned, we will have lost more than an opportunity for peace. We will have lost our moral authority to call ourselves civilized." The debate that followed lasted for many hours. Representatives argued back and forth about safety, precedent, and the implications of changing policies that had been in place for centuries. Some species were afraid that showing mercy to Corvash would be seen as weakness. Others worried about what would happen if they were wrong about the creature's intentions. But throughout the entire debate, Danny sat beside Corvash in the chamber. Both of them were surrounded by the most powerful beings in the galaxy, yet they seemed completely at peace with each other. The boy would occasionally reach up to pat the creature's arm, and Corvash would respond with gentle sounds that were clearly expressions of affection. The sight of this friendship gradually began to influence even the most skeptical delegates. How could any civilization that claimed to value progress and understanding ignore such a profound breakthrough? Finally, the vote was called. It was closer than Jake would have liked, but it was decisive enough to matter. Corvash would be granted provisional freedom under human custody. Danny Martinez would serve as the primary communication liaison. A new xenobiological research program would be established to explore peaceful contact with the remaining Korthak populations. Most significantly, the Galactic Council would review all of its first contact protocols to ensure that future encounters began with communication rather than confrontation. As the session concluded, Danny sat beside Corvash in the chamber. Both of them were surrounded by the most powerful beings in the galaxy, but they only seemed to care about each other. The boy looked up at his massive friend with satisfaction. "See? I told you they would understand once they got to know you." Corvash responded with that musical sound, then gently nuzzled the top of Danny's head with his nose. Around them, delegates from across the galaxy watched in wonder as a human child and a former destroyer shared a moment of perfect friendship. Jake approached them both, his heart full of pride and possibility. "So, buddy, what do you think? Ready to help make history?" Danny grinned up at his guardian, then at the massive creature who had become his unlikely best friend. "I think Corvash is ready to go home someday. But first, maybe we should introduce him to some other kids. I bet there are lots of children on Earth who would love to meet him." Dr. Vasquez was already making plans for the research program. "We will need to establish communication protocols, create safe interaction guidelines, and begin preparing for contact with other members of his species. This could change everything we know about interspecies relations." "It already has," Jake said, watching Danny and Corvash together. "A child showed us that the most dangerous problems sometimes have the simplest solutions." Over the next few weeks, news of the breakthrough spread throughout the galaxy. Children from dozens of species sent messages of friendship to Corvash. Scientists requested to study the communication methods Danny had pioneered. Most importantly, preliminary contact was established with a Korthak colony that had been hiding in the Outer Rim systems. The first conversations were difficult and required Danny to help translate between human concepts and Korthak understanding. But gradually, a picture emerged of a species that had been defending itself from what it saw as aggressive expansion by the Galactic Council. The Rim Wars had been a tragic misunderstanding escalated by fear and miscommunication on both sides. As they prepared to leave Zephyr Station and head for Earth, Jake reflected on how much had changed. A routine diplomatic mission had become the beginning of a new era of galactic cooperation. And it had all started because a child chose kindness over fear. Danny was helping Corvash practice sitting and staying, teaching him the same commands he had once taught his dog Rex. The massive creature was remarkably gentle and patient with the boy's instructions, eager to please his first and best friend. "You know what, Uncle Jake?" Danny said, as they watched ships from many different species docking peacefully at the station. "I think the galaxy is going to be a much nicer place now." Jake smiled and put his arm around the boy who had changed everything. "I think you are right, buddy. I think you are absolutely right." As their ship departed Zephyr Station, heading for Earth with its most unusual passenger, the universe seemed full of new possibilities. The age of humanity among the stars had truly begun, not with weapons or technology, but with the unlimited power of a child's open heart and the simple word that had changed galactic history forever: sit.